Oh man, what to say about Pilotwings 64? For most people, Super Mario 64 was the game that helped define the Nintendo 64, but for me, it was Pilotwings. Released as a launch title back in 1996, Pilotwings 64 is a flight simulation game that was co-developed by Nintendo and Paradigm Simulation, and is a follow-up to the Super NES original that was released in 1991 as a launch title as well. I've got a lot of memories with this one, some good and some bad, but it'll always hold a special place in my heart. Back when the 64 was announced, I saved up every penny and every dollar I could so I could finally get my hands on that shiny new system. If you remember my Killer Instinct video, I talked about it briefly and how excited I was to finally get the arcade version of KI at home. Unfortunately, it didn't happen the way that I had hoped, since we ended up getting an entirely different game down the road, but Pilotwings more than helped to make up for that disappointment. I had always been a big fan of the original, and this game was an enormous leap forward in terms of technology, and it really blew my mind the first time I sat down with it. In Pilotwings 64, you take control of one of 6 amateur pilots and make your way through several series of events while trying to compete for the highest scores in accuracy to inevitably earn your different pilot licenses. You'll be flying a gyrocopter, hang gliding, and even blasting away in your own personal jetpack. In addition, there are several extra events too, which include one of my favorites, the Human Cannonball. This mode will have you fire your pilot out of a cannon while adjusting for wind and angle, and attempt to hit a target dead center. It's challenging, but boy is it a great time. The really cool thing about Pilotwings 64 is that it allows you to openly explore its world, which is a relatively new concept at the time, and something that this game and Mario 64 helped to cement as a gameplay staple on Nintendo's console. It's big and open, and there's lots to look at and explore. It's just really easy to get sidetracked sometimes while on a mission. There's just so much temptation to fly around and take a look at that cave or check out what's on the other side of that city. Points are awarded per event based on specific criteria that you have to try to meet. Usually, you'll receive or lose points based on time, accuracy, and the quality of your landing, if applicable. Pilotwings 64 does a really good job of taking advantage of the N64's controller, specifically the analog stick and Z button, to really drive home the authentic flight feel. And it works too. You can really feel the momentum in a lot of the events, and the game presents a sensation of flight that's missing in many other games. As you go through the game, the events keep getting tougher, and let me tell you, this game is no cakewalk. The footage you're seeing here for this review was taken over a few days of me attempting to play Pilotwings again after at least a decade, and I had forgotten how truly challenging the game was. It ended up taking me a lot longer than I thought it would to get through the majority of the starter events and unlock some of the later stages, especially in the hang gliding sections. I've always had a really hard time with those, and usually have much better luck with the jetpack and gyrocopter bits. The graphics in Pilotwings 64 may not have aged that well by today's standards, but back in 1996, this game was the cat's pajamas. There's a lot of background detail here, and even though it does look a bit muddy like most games on Nintendo's console, it does do an awesome job of representing what it's supposed to, and you can never really blame the visuals for taking you out of the experience. The world feels exciting, mysterious, and alive, and that's a hard feat to accomplish, especially back in 1996. The sound and music is equally good, though it's definitely aged a lot better. The music is very calming for the most part and sets the mood nicely, as does the menu music. The sound effects are wonderful too, albeit a bit too loud sometimes. Everything seems to fit nicely until you crash, and then the character screams blast out of your TV speakers. It's funny at first, but when you're struggling on an event that you just can't seem to win, it gets old pretty quick. To wrap up, Pilotwings 64, while sometimes frustrating, is an excellent game. It really brought something different to the table and was a really cool game to launch alongside the Nintendo 64. It can be a little tough to look at today, but if you can get past the visuals, there's still a ton of fun to be found here. It's pretty cheap these days too, so if you've never played it before and it's looking interesting to you, give it a shot. The first game is great too, and I do dig the 3DS version as well, but there's just something extra special about Pilotwings on the Nintendo 64. As always, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, subscribing, and commenting. And until next time, stay classic.